Hi everyone. In this new session, I just want to share with you my experiences that I've been through in the past 6 months. The aim of this video is basically just to help out people, to help out those people that are, pushing to like probably become new junior UX designers as well as like organizing themselves and just see what I have been doing, which actually works. It's a system, it's a method that I've been applying for the past 6 months that just helps me out just grow into the industry and actually like approach better venues as well as all these like startup agencies as well that will basically try and connect. I've giving my services are always open. You can always like visit my LinkedIn as well as see what I'm doing as well on like Behance, and I've got a website I can share with you. What I wanted to do is just like sum up basically all the things that happened for the past 6 months, which have been really like profitable as well for me, like which have been like something that made a real difference in the way people perceive things. So I'm gonna get on with it straight away. Like you can see on that background as well, that's our last project that I've been working on, which was basically based on like trying to use AI for education purposes. So I've worked with like a team of developers and other designers as well to just create that new app that we wanted to focus on tablet mostly because this is what we wanted to do. We wanted to just discover and try and push the boundaries towards like new platforms as well. So we've been working on this, and I will get back onto like all my inspirations and all the things that I do on like a daily basis as well. So we'll get on with this. The Read With Me app. So what is it? What have we tried to perform on that side? Basically, what we created was literally from scratch. We just brought up ideas of like new projects that we wanted to actually compile as like probably like portfolio project mostly to start with, but we had that aim of like trying to make the product commercial as well afterwards if it did actually like set out to be something that could actually like really work in like a marketplace environment type of thing. So what we did is start onto working along a prototype that would actually work specifically on tablet. There was a possibility as well during the development and during like the UX research that we would actually like jump onto doing a mobile version of it as well, because people just basically would fancy being able to just like literally access the app wherever they are and wherever they want. So the best way to do it is basically for me to just like show you how we got inspired into like creating the UI design, which is through a prototype that I will discover with you as well. Um, the intro was basically the logo would appear, splash screen, standard. Get onto the app, read with me. Logo is what it is. It's not a final version, obviously, but it's something that we've worked on to actually like inspire people to actually get to read things, and there's been quite a lot of different sources that we've worked on. The intro page, we are planning onto like as well creating an onboarding. So the take a tour option would actually like basically take you onto like 3 frames that would switch from one to another to actually set out all the core features of the app, things that we've worked on um, alongside as well. So the developers were basically in constant sort of like communication with me and the UX team to actually uh, set out like step by step what people would actually want to work on and what they should actually like, start focusing on early. Obviously, development process on the coding side takes a bit longer, so being able to actually start it early during the actual creation process was a great feature for us to just work alongside with, and most people that were involved were very much into like discovering and actually trying to really perform their best into doing so. So it was a great situation for us. We're all together working alongside. Uh, that tablet version that we've got here, basically, that's a welcome screen that is based on AI illustrations on one side as well as responsive sort of features as well. Like so, most of the app itself will react to different platform sizes and adapt to it. So we go forward. Our first feature that we had to just basically deal with was to like create a sign up option. So obviously, like most sign up options have to be uh, as user friendly as possible. So the sign in with Google and Apple was like obviously inevitable, was something that has to go through as it is standard. Material design inspired for the design system. I've been really like trying to just focus on what uh, the Google Sports were actually doing on the other side, which is relevant, obviously, which is friendly, which is what people know the best nowadays. So these are based and all sizes, everything is just literally material design. Is it the 3.0 we're on to, or maybe more? So it's all inspired for all the UI assets that I've been introducing in the app itself. So relevant sign-in options, we tried alongside um, most of our inspired colleagues to just keep it as minimalistic as possible. It just made things easier first for us as like development terms. You know, we had a certain amount of time to actually like get to create the entire app itself. So we tried really to just like focus onto the technical side of things, which had, you know, obviously its challenges. But as well as like creating the most, you know, simple and accessible app that we could get for the users, for the user target that we have identified alongside as well. So sign in option, get through it, get onto like a simple pathway page which allows users to actually like choose what they actually want to do with the app itself. um, you could have basically identified students that would like want to learn on their own and actually like improve their performance on a different level. They're complete different type of users that work still alongside in the way they actually want to learn it. So the student on one side, and as well as the parents that want to teach their children, want to just like add extra efforts to like get their child to learn quicker. So this is both options that we wanted to set out to be yeah, available for all users. We really tried to actually like cover up a demographic area that, you know, would expand potentially, but we wanted to just keep it as two like simple pathways that they could choose from basically. So if we go as a parent, you get to onto a learner's form. We need to know a bit more about, you know, what the actual users will be about. So the name, age, gender, following up onto a placeholder, identifying the grade level. Again, that's something that would probably be optional. We want to try and know more and actually get the app to work better, to actually like work around the user before we actually get to it. So know more about themselves. And jumping onto the dashboard itself, there's a lot of things that have been added up afterwards. Basically, they want to be able to identify either a learner or a teacher, which is important. So that's an option we've left open for us to work on eventually for like future reference. The reader story is our main core feature itself, which takes you straight away onto either a random story that will be created by AI, which is our main focus, is basically to implement AI in the app that would do the job mostly for users and actually like apply performances levels to age gaps and things like that. So it's important for us to actually have that working. So this was the most technical part of it that we actually worked on and managed to work out. So the developers decided to use the OpenAI basically that works with tokens. So it's not something that's free, obviously, for us to test on. So we did like lots and lots of tests that did actually work out really, really well because the AI responded to everything we were actually asking it to sort out. And so the AI system we used basically would actually generate new stories that would be adapted to the actual audience that it was aiming at. So it was obviously accessible to children, would actually focus on the grade level. So if we go through the actual layout of the page itself, very straightforward. We've got a search bar that I designed as well that just opens up and takes its place over the rest of the UI assets. So search results comes out as like a little slip. This little extra icon was set out to basically add extra users to the dashboard itself. So if you got like several children you want to actually attend to, and give the option to actually like get the app working for their own sessions, you can just add a new user, so and use the exact same dashboard. You can just switch users by just going on to the profile picture and just like switch accounts quickly. And that's the whole idea, was like really to actually make it as simple and as straightforward as possible for parents to use. The side menu will just take you back home. It's just a standard that will basically be there for you to use alongside the entire navigation itself. um, we really wanted it to be like personalized to the user. So it's him speaking his language. The language of the app is basically based on what the user expect from it, basically. So it's his environment. So it's my task, my stories. Everything is based on what he wants and how he wants to use it. It's just trying to just get the user closer to the actual application. So our core feature, read a story, is basically alongside this model that we developed, which is the clearest and minimalistic design, obviously, that we wanted to actually get to. The text would be big enough, and really like the inclusivity part of the application was really focused onto these few pages that really need to translate for literally everybody, and be accessible for all. So the prototype works as such: you start reading and you read alongside. The app itself will actually be able to listen to the user and hear out exactly the way he pronounces the words and how fast he does it, and everything will be analyzed in the background. Technically, that is something that we've managed to achieve, which I was really proud of at the end, because most developers have really worked hard onto like making the overall platform really work. So it's separate in like paragraphs, so the user can really focus on like a few lines at once, and you move from one page to another, reading every time, background fading, just trying to make the user actually focused on what's most important on the page. So following up on the text itself, pressing next to get to the next part. Once it's finished and got to the last bit, press next again, and the results appear on the page as like a score wheel that I developed as well myself. Uh, Everything else is basically based on a minimalistic design that I've really tried hard to stick to, obviously. But the clarity, regularity, confidence, everything is analyzed. Everything is taken into account by AI, and depending on what appears and depending on what the score would be, basically a badge will be rewarded accordingly. And reading tip, literally right here, would actually help you uh, um, find out where you need to focus on, basically. But this is again fully generated by AI. It will identify what your strong points are as well as what your weaknesses could be, basically. So these tips will help them advance and progress. Um, if you press next from that point onwards, it will end the session or allow you to actually retry it as well. If you feel like you can do better straight away reading the same text, it will give you that option, basically. So when you end the session, it goes back to the main dashboard itself. So now we switched on to this one is slightly more accessible to students, basically. This is like the student part of things. And the concept basically is very similar, because we really wanted to actually have dashboards that would be like practically the same, but just different, but more engaging for each audience, basically. So this part of the student area is the one we probably haven't worked on as much, because this is something that would basically apply to users that would be able to just navigate by themselves. So this is simpler. There's a bit less sort of like UI help that just like comes up with like extra pop-ups and things like that. It's not something that we've integrated as much as the other one. So yeah, the accessibility is different from one user to another. This one is basically more accessible, so it's a lot simpler in the way it's navigated, with less support, I would say, for inclusivity in terms of the creation process. We've worked on like setting up two pages, the scratchbook and the UI. The scratchbook part basically covers up all the start of the product itself, that when we where we started as like doing proceeding towards the UX research of things, seeing how we can implement the product within, a realistic sort of like market situation. So what we pushed on that side was more developing our user type, trying to create personas, as well as like having a clear competitive analysis that would actually like tell us exactly like what we were facing, where we were heading towards, what solution we couldn't bring up to basically the user's experience, as well as like what problems we could like encounter, and that we should have to look into like to actually fix properly. So this was the first thing we did, is working on the exploratory phase, which basically is the titles just speak for themselves, addressing the problem and the questions list. Lots of questions, not as much for users to start with, but maybe for stakeholders, like the people the team would know and would want to actually set out a path quickly, so that we could actually like start working on what matters most for us, what we actually inspire to create as a product. So this basically exploratory phase was mostly based on that, and how to associate afterwards the the first user's experience, the first user feedback that we can actually get, how to actually like make it match with the path we were taking, that aligns with the potential user and stakeholders, and then gives us what matters most as like the directions we want to take for either the stakeholders or what the user's experience has been. The user potential user results has been based on, to start with, the competitive analysis, which uh, gives us a clear idea of what companies that work in the real world actually had to face themselves with users. And then me and my research team, we set out to actually develop use the double diamond strategy method, which will help us to craft the problem statements and set out a list of all the possible difficulties, as well as like problems that the user could encounter just using the app itself. So it will like probably help us try and set up a site map, something that would actually like give us a good idea of like what transitions and what navigation purposes we could actually integrate in the product itself at the end. So we set out a list of questions for the stakeholders to actually like focus on, and try and give their most honest answer of something that they think would actually be the most relevant to our project itself. So the questions were about like 10 to 12 questions that have been aligned and worked out with the team. And the exploratory phase took us to a stakeholder common grounds sort of table that would help us mostly agree on what we can agree on, but as well brainstorm on what matters most. So both sides were like aligned, and see the brainstorming bit would be helping us to have a clear idea of all the elements that we would have to interact with, all listed in different so the environment, the device, the AI feature, the problem, the user, and the app. That were all the main branches that we needed to focus on basically. Onwards, it has to be iterated on, obviously, but this research of structure is part of the UX research itself. It has to just like show a process, show a way of structuring the team with the actual product, and see where we can work from then on, basically. This has taken us about a couple of weeks. It's not a long process when you know what you're doing, when you keep the communication flowing between the team members. Then we tried to dig in a bit further. Obviously, we needed to know more about the user itself, so we could actually start on like building proper personas afterwards, help to structure the user profile itself. So a series of questions that we've basically sent out for people to answer to. So we had a survey followed up by an interview as well. So it was like more a remote sort of like remote interview that we processed with like people that were willing to actually like participate into the project itself. So once we were able to collect all this user data, we started crafting the personas. So we identified three main ones, just like we discovered it on the prototype earlier. So we've got the mom, the child, obviously, and the student. These have been set out thanks to our research team. I've worked with like three different UX researchers that worked hard on to like building an empathy map for each of them as well. That little child, that Jaden, was the most interesting to work on basically because he is the one that we will mostly focus on to develop the app because we found a niche maybe slightly afterwards into like working harder onto identifying what the needs were with the users themselves. He was the most interesting one because he covered up basically uh, the whole of the user type experience that the app would actually like work with. The niche we discovered afterwards were the schools, the relationship between um, the students, their own pupils, as well as the teachers themselves. This was an element that we needed to add because it was essential, because it could actually end up being not only used privately, it could actually be used by institutions and educational platforms, as well as like teaching environments and things like that. We had lots of ideas that just popped up afterwards. Then we set out to align the core features for each of them. So it was a browsing, it was a lot of brainstorming, obviously, for us to actually like push into like what each of our persona would actually want to find on the app itself. So trying to extract as much information as possible onto like what features and what sections we wanted to actually implement in the app on the end product. Task analysis and user journey, obviously, like for either of these, we just joined in obviously the mom and the child because we set out the both sections would actually be like more convenient for the user to use, just like we said earlier, the student area as well as the supervised sort of like version of the dashboard that we wanted to create. So the task analyzing and user journey help us to actually like find out what core features would be most important and more accessible for our user type for each of them, and then pushing further on the UI build itself. So that's the first steps we took to actually identify the sitemap and seeing what the features would probably potentially be accessed like. So it's more a navigational path than an actual set out of like what the app would actually look at the end. So the first time login on one side and the return login on the other, basically. So just like roughly show what ideas we've been gathering, what data has actually allowed us to get to this point, basically onwards. So the splash screen would be jumping onto a welcoming screen and a big button saying, let's go. So it's really basic. That's one of these like probably low fidelity wireframes you would think of like joining up pages together, but just joining ideas together. So nothing is implemented such as a UI type of thing, or even any design system is not implemented whatsoever. Still being worked on. Design system is great because that is something that you can actually think about early and iterate on from pretty much the start of the actual project itself. The UX research as well as the design system just comes and rise in your head as like we can actually think of great ideas of like what would it look like in your head? What would it look like if you were to use that app as early as possible? So an interesting like frame of mind to actually like set out straight onwards from the beginning of the project. So yeah, jump onto that, and then the path would take you either side, so towards the student way or the supervised way. So we already had that in place quite early on, which was good. So a learner's form is necessary. Obviously, we identified that quickly. We need to know more about the user itself. So the AI system we actually developed afterwards would actually uh, stick to that bit and have already a set of information that you could actually work on to identify the user needs, and help us out. And then jumping on to dashboards. Dashboards were early on, obviously, but things were already shaping up pretty quick. We knew we had challenges in the way of reading a story that would like be generated by AI afterwards. So this was a great part of it. We worked that out pretty quickly and actually stuck to it pretty much until the end. We had quite of like a slight changes that we implemented afterwards, but this was a great way to start for it. Then we started working on like inspirational systems, just like the typography or the font system we wanted to implement as well. So that was quite early on something that we've worked on as well. The inspirations were mostly based on design systems that were most accessible for people. Like I said, the material design from Google was very, very much inspired from, but very sort of convenient with the platform we were working on, because the tablet actually, most most apps on tablet do offer that system of fonts as well as accessible buttons, and this is what they use very widely, and that works best at the minute. So we wanted to just keep it convenient, whatever happens, for the user types that we identified for this project. So many different ideas, pop-ups, like list systems as well, some action sheets, examples as well, and contextual menus that we could actually integrate and work on. We still needed to make it our own, whatever happened. Uh, but it was a start for us to actually get inspired from, which was a great one, because we all agreed on the efficiency and the purpose that it would actually bring to our application. So we all worked on the colors as well, like the badges we could actually like integrate on the end product. Obviously, the color palettes were decided on quite quickly as well. It had to be very friendly orientated. We had to like actually like be vivid enough for people to get interested in it as well, and be attractive for both user types as well. Just like the students and children would like it both roughly the same, because we wanted the colors to just remain roughly the same for both sides as well. So some test outs of like new screens as well. So that was very, very early on basically, but it did work out pretty well, as well as building so day modes and night modes as well. So that's something obviously that needs integrating for both these apps, especially for a reading app. It needs to be like very sort of accessible. Just like I've worked on uh, basically setting out the best way of like them to actually read without um, having to wear glasses, without having to just like be offended by the brightness, the contrast. Everything's been worked on, so the user would be like most comfortable basically for the reading. And then if we move on of our next page, which is the more advanced sort of area of the project itself, that's where we wanted to uh, see what it would look like. Developers are very keen on like finding out exactly like what it's gonna look like on the end product sort of thing. So this is something that we had to work on very quickly and promptly, and make them aware of what colors and what buttons they would be dealing with. We try to keep an eye on the other side of the team, because the developers need to be informed step by step by what you actually want them to do. Communication needs to keep flowing on every single level. So we had that little devs work reviews to work with, that would actually like be basically a resume of what they're doing well and what needs actually working on. So these have been like thousands of these that have been sent out again and again. Iteration is essential, and it's been flowing really well with the developers, because they've worked hard on like really making it look exactly the same when they started coding onto it, doing screen reviews just such as these ones. So these documents were being sent straight away to the developers for them to actually like notify all the implementations that needed working on that didn't look great basically on the screen itself. So there's been many of these. It's been a great experience. It's been a great sort of like friendship experience that I would recommend to anybody because that's a great part of the job itself. So I deployed summaries and reviews, obviously, of like features that needed implementing and needed to look exactly as it should. So yeah, the separate side menus, the main frame with all the elements, the UI elements that needed to actually like work exactly the same. A full new element purpose, new elements purpose, like are all the updates that needed, obviously to be added, changed, worked on. Things were still changing on the UI UX side of things, so it would have had to be like as well communicated with the developers to make those changes like happen in real time, sort of thing. So that's what working alongside with developers, you had need that constant exchange and sections and content on the parent side, so the supervised side as well as the student side. So every section would be like clearly identified for them to actually like um, code it properly and just get those sections set out for us to actually like add features into it and things like it. So that's an important part of it. We had a good go as well as like getting extra sort of like data from the chat GPT insights. I thought it would be a great idea to actually identify what the AIs actually like currently would bring into the project itself. So I did prompts that were quite relevant to our project. So this supported our sitemap basically, or all our navigational purposes were like gathered into like one one big prompt. We needed that prompt to be as accurate as possible and as close to like what our project was heading towards. So the prompt was as such: I'm going to ask you a question in my next message before responding, and I want you to think through your answer carefully using all the tools and reasoning available to you. Plan First option would be plan silently, map out the question, consider relevant facts, outline your reasoning path, and note any assumptions or missing information. Verify, use your internal tools, code, interpret, web search if available, and data analysis to fact check key details and ensure accuracy. Clarify if the request is ambiguous. Pause and ask for clarification before continuing. Respond. Once ready, write all clear details and well organized answer. Do not include your thought process, just provide the best, most accurate answer possible. Only respond when you've done all of the above. And then the following prompt would be the product being developed in an app which produces AI generated books to help children and students to learn to read with adapted content. Now we are trying to uncover the topics to be implemented that come as most satisfactory for the user profile based on accurate user research and trends. Can you work out what topics that would be most relevant to implement in each of these sections? Read a story, challenges, tasks, top stories, progress tracking, profile settings, and my stories were all the sections that we identified basically as like being necessary to just implement in the overall navigation itself. So this is what the prompt would actually look like. And he gave us some like great answers. He already like started working out what we could think of implementing in each of these features in the app. And based on that, we saw that it was already as well gripping onto our competitive analysis results because obviously it's collecting all the data from what the internet gives it, what actually worked as like marketing products already in the same area. So all the feedback that we've had from these confirmed already what we've pretty much worked on, but the features were like clearly displayed. For example, mystery in the read story, you could have like a mystery and historical fiction that helps deepen the comprehension and cultural awareness. there's a real purpose to each of these features that we could actually implement. And we had a great overview from the AI that would actually like, you know, help us focus on what matters most as well. So it's inspired, but it doesn't actually give you exactly what you need to implement. It's just for us to actually see a context and actually start working on it. So this was a great little sidetracked sort of like experiment for us to work on as well. And finally, our design system, obviously. So I was like much more advanced in the project itself. That was just uh, getting into seeing exactly where we were going typography wise, the amount of different bodies and subtitles that we would implement in the final project, in the final product. Uh, Obviously, we got onto the palette colors that were for definite being implemented in it and being used for the buttons and all the actions, interactions that would work within the app itself. So every button has been like reworked on and developed in that sense of sticking to our minimalistic sort of vision of the app, the animations with all the badges, um, and the material design reference kit. Yeah, so that was everything for us to get these actually rolling. Moving on to the product itself. So that's basically the responsive sort of final product that we would actually be working on. The illustrations have been redone because obviously they were only like fictitious along the project itself, but the final ones were based on to like what this one looks like a little bit. So it's very near the same as like what the prototype looked like. If you get on to explore the app, you need to sign in first. So you get onto the sign in process, which is like the login that the developer have managed to actually like accomplish as well and worked well on. So you go through the sign in process and get onto that first dashboard page that hasn't been finalized on every levels. Obviously, this is not a tablet screen, so it's not gonna be supported on all the features that we've got. But basically, the reader story is there. Parent dashboard, my story, top story, everything's been put through basically to work through browsers. So it's browser based, so that's why it does have that notion of like trying to just like make it work on every levels. So it's a responsive framework, obviously, so it helps the user to actually like use it on several platforms. This is not something we looked at too deeply because our main focus, like I said, was to be developed on tablets itself. So yeah, the research bar has been creating the same. The reader story, you can expand them as like little drapes coming down to just add a bit more colors, a bit more, options to it. The profile option was an interesting part as well. We just added up and like clicking on that little logo file that would just like allows you to sign out to get onto the profile itself. The profile could be shared between other people, but obviously security wise, we just add to just implement a way to generate a link token so that the actual informations could be shared securely and privately. Um, the privacy is a very important thing. So you just generate it, and the token will allow you to just like access a code that will enable the user to actually share it with other users. And everything else, yeah, has been implemented in that sense. When we gathered first time with the team, we needed to brainstorm towards what everybody felt like that was an essential part that could actually play it on as us developing a new product. So the inspiration at first came from one of my personal projects that I developed as part of I would say a portfolio project sort of thing as well, and it was a fully like mobile first app that would actually work onto offering schools and teachers a better way of like communicating with each other, with the parents, but as well as like internally with other colleagues within the school itself. And I called it the parent app, which is very basic to start with, but this is really like a project that I've built for me to actually like explore new possibilities and new ways of interacting uh, in a more fluid way, you know, with the parents as well as the children and colleagues within the school itself. So the parent app it did look like this, with ways of discovering newsletters as well as like special events, and that was the inspiration of our project to start with. um, like an easy sort of like ways of like navigating through the app, as well as like going into the admin part of things, set up the parent pay, social allowances with like simple like one click sort of thing, login details, change passwords. All this was like implemented in that first project that I did, mostly by myself as well, but just to help out schools exploring different ways for children to learn. This concludes my little video presentation. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've been inspired, because that's the whole point of the actual video itself. If you've got any comments or anything to add up, please feel free to just visit my LinkedIn profile, as well as just exploring my new website. It's been updated recently as well, so you can definitely go on to this and give me plenty of news. I'll be really, really happy to help. Get in touch. We will see you soon. Thank you.